Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Eisen, and I am one of the facilitators for the course Introduction to Educational Philosophy. Welcome to week one. A little bit about myself. I am the Associate Director for Professional Development at the YU School Partnership. What that means, in essence, is that I provide in-services, workshops, school visits, etc. And my mission in my position is to help teachers improve their craft, recognize where they're being successful, and help them to move along the spectrum of best teaching practices. This course was specifically designed for the Miami-based teachers in Jewish day schools. So I'm hoping that at the end of this course, you will develop a small cohort of teachers who are interested in this topic who might continue the conversation, both online and perhaps in person, if you should ever decide to meet for some coffee to continue the discussion. This is week one, and I've called it Defining Your Teacher Self. When you look at this slide entitled The Profile of a Modern Teacher, that's you, a modern teacher. Which one of these heads defines who you are now? When I started my teaching career 25 years ago, I was teaching here. I live in Northern Virginia at a small Jewish day school called Gesher Jewish Day School. I was teaching kindergarten, and I was all about the project. Most of the definitions of a modern teacher that you see in front of you now would never have defined me as a teacher. Embracing change for me would have been very difficult. Asking the question, why not, would have been even more difficult. Not knowing what was going to happen next would have been the most debilitating piece for me as a first or second year teacher. But as I continued in my career and read about best practices, and I saw that as long as I encouraged myself to learn and sometimes fail forward, my students would come along with me and join me on the ride. I like to think that it can be a roller coaster being a teacher, right? Sometimes you coast, sometimes you get on, you're not quite sure what's coming around the bend, but if you hold on tight and you smile, sometimes with your eyes closed and sometimes them open, your students will come along on the ride with you. I spent most of my time in lower school, but in my new position in professional development have spent time in classrooms of all grade levels. And I think that most of the definitions of what a modern teacher is here should begin to represent who you are as a teacher as well. Picking those pieces that might be challenging for you, might be uncomfortable for you, are ways that you can improve your practice, taking one at a time, deciding where your entry point is going to be. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at philosophies that are hot topics in education today. They will help us to develop a language to use amongst ourselves in this cohort, but also for you to use as you get together with other teachers and continue the discussion after the course is done. In this course, we're going to talk about in this week, I should say, we're going to talk about who you are as teachers. We're going to define that in 3 ways. Number one, who you are as a teacher. How would you describe yourself as a teacher? Maybe a little bit about your journey as a teacher. Number two, in terms of what kind of a mindset do you have? This is a popular topic these days. It's began by Carol Dweck, a professor at Stanford University. Carol Dweck has a wonderful book called Mindset, one that I strongly suggest if you have not read, you should pick up and read. It's a very easy read. In fact, I read it at the beach, which means that's how easy it is. But as you look at a definition between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, there are quizzes you can take to define who you are, but you know pretty much who you are when you look at the definitions at each. On the left side, a growth mindset. I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, I learn. Tell me I try hard. If you succeed, I'm inspired. And a fixed mindset. I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. Tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel threatened. So at any given moment, we might have feelings on both sides. But as a teacher, when you're standing in front of your students, which mindset do you have? The mindset you have is then contagious to your students. The language that you use with the students, the way you approach each of your assignments with your students, the way you choose to involve them in planning and being proactive in your planning helps to define what kind of a classroom environment you're trying to set. Here are some examples to get you going. Change your words and change your mindset. When you hear students saying, I don't do it well, ask them instead, what are you missing? When you hear yourself, this is done well enough, but could you really answer this question, does this represent my best work? I have a colleague, Elise Haber, at Hebrew Academy in Montreal. She decided to put a lot of what her students do on a blog. She teaches English in the lower school. At first, when she would give writing assignments, kids would do it and they would do the best that they could do, if this is done well enough. And sometimes they would get a decent grade for it. There was no impetus to do better. They would want to get a better grade perhaps, but once she decided to put the work on a blog so it would be public for the kids to see, they decided to set up different rules for themselves as to what would be publishable work. What is work that they are proud of? What is work that they would be proud to share with others and that would allow others to comment on their work? It changed the mindset of our classroom. It changed the focus of the kids' writing. How about when you hear a child say, I made a mistake? But instead of saying, okay, fix it, use the words, mistakes help me to learn better. It's too hard would be one that I would hear all the time, no matter what grade level I was teaching. Trying to teach the kids, I need more time and effort. Involving them in the process, sitting down with them and having conversations about what they're doing and what you're going to do to support your work. Even if you're a lower school teacher and you have kids that are in an argument, I watch a teacher go over to the argument, and it was over a game, and say, what can I do to help you resolve this situation? It was no blame game here. It was more of how can we learn from what happened and how can we improve? Finally, I'm going to ask you to look at your classroom, the third teacher in your classroom. The first one, of course, is you. The second one, your students. And the third is the physical space of your classroom. It could be that it looks just like this. But even looking like this, what can you do to support a learning climate in your classroom? How could you use even these desks, tables, and chairs to incorporate the 21st century skills of collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and communication? What are the options this teacher has? Not a whole lot in terms of using the furniture. Doesn't look like a Google office or a Facebook office, but it can be moved around in order to incorporate those 4 critical pieces in 21st century learning. Here's a teacher that had almost the same kind of space. But what did he do? He moved the tables around a little bit. He's using his walls effectively, not to show teacher store products, but to show student work. The opportunities for the kids to interact with each other is more available here just by the mere fact that he moved the tables around. Again, there's nothing fancy in this classroom. He didn't go out to buy fancy equipment or materials. There's a few computers in there for kids to access, but it doesn't look like a Google Classroom at all. But he's creating an environment where his students are vested in the learning. His desk is not the central piece of the classroom. The children are working in pods. They're working in groups to enable them to use the skills that will better prepare them for their futures. Thinking outside the box, though, this is a different style of classroom. A little bit more money is spent in here. A lot less furniture is seen in here. The one piece that I want you to take note of is in the back of the classroom. Number one, the teachers provided different ways for children to learn. Here you can see kids on their computers or their iPads, and they're working individually. In the back, you can see opportunities for kids to collaborate, whether they're working at a desk with 6, with 4, or with 3, depending on the kind of work. There's plenty of space for independent work, and there's plenty of space, period. I don't see a chalkboard in here. What I see is a movable wall, but what you might not be able to see because of the quality of the photograph is that this movable wall is a whiteboard. One of your readings that you're going to have this week is by a teacher named Ilana Zadok. Ilana teaches at the Harkham Hillel School in California, in Los Angeles. I visited her school last summer, and I visited her classroom in particular. Everything in her classroom is on wheels. How the classroom functions, how the third teacher is set up every day is defined by the activity the kids are going to be doing, which is shared by the teacher with the students, and the students set up the classroom. I included her article about her journey into why she became a CoLab teacher in one of the research sections. So those are the 3 elements that we're going to focus on. They're going to help you define who you are as a teacher and share that information with me so I can guide you in your journey. Navigating this Moodle course. On the welcome page, you're going to see a link to something called My Understandings. During the 5 weeks, it is my hope that you will use this page. It's a wiki page and will be seen only by you and maybe by me if you give me permission to share your thoughts and your processes, almost like journaling. I note on the page, on the introduction page, that Dr. David Pelkovitz, who's a professor at the Azrieli School of Education, when he teaches for us, he teaches a course on happiness. He asks his participants to keep a happiness journal every day, jotting down what made them happy. I'm not going to ask you to keep a happiness journal, but I am going to ask you to keep a journal as you go through this course. What are small changes that you see happening in your classroom? Even not changes, what are thoughts about change that you're having in your classroom? It's my hope that by the end of the course, you can reflect back on your understandings to see how your practice or how your thought process might have changed. This is the Learn section from week 1. Next, you're going to move on to the research, in which you're going to find some videos, some articles to read that help you to understand best practices in teaching, who you are as a teacher, growth mindset, and classroom organization. You'll have an assignment this week to define who you are as a teacher. But one of the most crucial parts of the course is the discussion piece, in which I'm going to ask you to discuss amongst yourselves topics that are important to you that are related to our first week of learning. If you have any questions at all during the course of this week or during the course of the 5 weeks at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at melanie.eisen@yu.edu. I'm looking forward to a great week of learning. Please reach out with any questions or concerns and enjoy.